Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. I wasn't planning on going on live today, but when Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, the Biden Attorney General, announced that he's going to appoint a special counsel, so the Democrats can, who no longer have a capacity of a January 6th commission, now have their special counsel so they can continue harassing President Trump. I had to come on. This is insane. He's got to be kidding me. We've been going through investigations over President Trump for 6 years. Nancy Pelosi finally announces that she's going to step down as speaker, admits that somebody else is going to be speaker, appoints successors in the House minority. And yet Merrick Garland, Biden's hand-picked guy, Obama's picked guy to be on the Supreme Court, Biden's picked guy to be the Attorney General, says, no, we're going to investigate President Trump over January 6th. And, oh, by the way, over documents that he took to Mar-A-Lago with him when he left the presidency. Let me deal with the last one first, because it really just is insane. The President of the United States is the only person who determines what is classified and what isn't classified. When the Department of Justice or any other agent of the executive branch uses that power, they are doing so because they are acting on behalf of the President of the United States. They don't have independent powers of the President of the United States. They are fully and completely an arm of the President of the United States. That is all they are. So when Donald Trump is president, he gets to be president. And if he walks out of Mar-a-Lago when he's president with documents, he has declassified them. Whether he waved a magic wand over them and said that you're declassified or not, the very fact that he took them with him was declassification. That is just the way it is. They don't like it. They don't want it to be that way. But that's the law. That's the Constitution. You don't want the president to actually have the capacity to be the president, then change the Constitution and make Merrick Garland, make the Attorney General an independent branch of government. Because right now, the Department of Justice is nothing more than a weaponized agency of the left. They have absolutely no credibility whatsoever. And this special counsel is just another example of that. Here's what we know is true. We know that the J6 committee run by that was Pelosi's entity goes off and it runs this fake investigation with bipartisan, because Liz Cheney's part of it, and a guy Kinzerman or whatever his name is, it's not really worth remembering. He's not going to be in politics anymore. Is on it, and you know what? They run this thing for a year and a half after doing stuff for for the first half of last year. We've had this going on for almost 2 years. Did they look at Nancy Pelosi and her stripping down security around the Capitol? No. Did they look at the fact that the actual Capitol Police were letting people into the building? No. Do they look at any of the now we know 9 FBI officials who were part of the planning of the event? Do they look at that? No. All they cared about was trying to decipher whether or not Donald Trump was giving a speech down the street a good mile and a half away when people started attacking the building, was giving dog whistle statements for people to attack the building. He wasn't. He said, go down peacefully. He was talking about peaceful protest. Peaceful protest is allowed in this country. Check out the First Amendment, Mr. Garland. You might actually find it to be interesting. Check out the Constitution. You might find it interesting when it relates to the declassification of documents. Fact of the matter is, people have a right to protest peacefully. The President of the United States has a right to encourage people to protest peacefully. And that's just that. So all the other stuff, garbage that we're going to be talking about for the next 2 years before Donald Trump gets reelected for president, all that garbage is just that. apparently they're so desperate to try to give ratings to MSNBC and to CNN that they've got to create a special counsel. So the MSNBC hosts will have something to talk about for the next 2 years, because they sure as heck don't want to talk about what Joe Biden's doing to the country. So this is just, it's wrong. It's insane. And quite honestly, it's an affront to the way our government is supposed to work. It shows everything that's wrong with the way our government works. Remember, when the Hunter Biden laptop came out, oh, by the way, not surprisingly, this was announced on the heels of the House of Representatives saying, we've got proof that the President of the United States, Joe Biden, was directly involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings, where he was representing people in Ukraine, Burisma, natural gas company, tied into the government of Ukraine. And he was representing companies that were owned by the Chinese Communist Party. Anybody look around and take a note and say, hey, gee, where are the two greatest hotspots in the world? Well, we could say, I'm going to give you three, and Joe Biden's involved in all three. But two of them, one is Ukraine, the other is China. Third is Iran, which is exporting terrorism, while Joe Biden continues to give them money and coddle them and beg them to like us. But you think about Ukraine. Joe Biden went to Ukraine, by his own admission, 19 times as vice president. What the heck was he doing there? I mean, he went there almost as much as he went back to Delaware. What was going on in Ukraine? Well, when Donald Trump asked that question of the president of Ukraine, he got impeached because the people who were working with Biden on the Ukrainian policy were sitting in the room because they were part of the National Security Council, and they decided it was so dangerous. The answer to that question was so dangerous that they had to change the subject. They could not allow for that information to come out. And so we ended up with an impeachment of Donald Trump because he asked the question about what the heck is going on in Ukraine. And in terms of China, I mean, we're talking about a country that is intent upon dominating the world and destroying the United States. That's what they say, not me. But Joe Biden's son, and if the Republicans have the goods, and they say they've got 9 instances where they're involved in this relationship, in spite of his statement he wasn't. 9 instances. Guess what? We have a president who you have a reasonable belief, and it's reasonable to believe, is compromised. And what's the Attorney General's response? Do they take a look at what happened with Hunter Biden's laptop? No, they had it well in advance of the election, and they buried it. When the New York Post came out and said, "Here's Hunter Biden's laptop," and said, "Here's what it says," they went off and said, "No, that's not true." They used their influence, wink, wink, over social media companies like Facebook and Twitter and the like, to get any mention of it wiped off those pages. Or if they were on the pages, not get any kind of reach whatsoever, because the truth about what was in Hunter Biden's laptop could not be told to the American people, because Joe Biden was running against Donald Trump, and Donald Trump must be stopped at all counts, at all costs. Sick of it. But once again, we see what a weaponized Department of Justice looks like. And once again, we see why it's so important that Jim Jordan be the Judiciary Committee chairman, so he can rip these people apart, limb from limb, and demonstrate exactly how corrupt what are supposed to be our lead law enforcement agencies in the country, just how corrupt they are. I'm sick of it. I know you are too, but apparently we're going to get 2 more years of January 6th and 2 more years of breathless discoveries as these guys who are sitting there trying to take down Donald Trump, start up round 4. I'm going to take a look at some questions here. I didn't really want to go on for that long on it. Fire Garland, he should not have been. Yeah, well, yeah, you shouldn't. But the truth is, Joe, that the Democrats got to appoint him, and because Mitch McConnell wisely stopped Garland from being on the Supreme Court, McConnell kind of waved him out into being head of Department of Justice as the AG, and talk about a guy who is compromised. Thank you, Dennis. I mean, we just have to stand up and fight. Okay, I'm enraged. I'm sure you are. We have to just have to stand up and fight with these guys, and we have to encourage Republicans. If you have a Republican member in the House, or somebody who's going to be a Republican member because you worked in their campaign or something, call them up and demand that they hold the Department of Justice accountable. Because as far as I'm concerned, the Republicans still have the capacity to impact the power of the purse, and I wouldn't vote for a single dime to go to this special counsel. Sick of it. And one final point. You know who's the most honest individual, the person who is certified to be the cleanest candidate in any race ever in the history of America? Donald Trump. Nobody's ever gone through the kind of investigations where they broke his attorney-client privilege, where they broke into it, basically forced his bankers to give all his financial data, where they went and got the campaign manager and put him under and basically arrested his 2 campaign managers now, and have tried to break them down to try to find something that he did wrong. Had a special counsel dedicated for a year and a half to taking down Donald Trump. We had a congressional committee dedicated to taking down Donald Trump. Had a FBI that was determined to take down Donald Trump. And you know what they haven't done? They haven't taken him down. You know what else they haven't done? They can't even get an obstruction of justice charge because he is not guilty of anything. But they'll never stop, because in the mind of the deranged left, Donald Trump must be stopped. And that tells me, if he's the most dangerous person to the deranged left and the deep state, then anybody thinking right who wants to stand up, he is the cleanest man in America right now, no matter who else runs for president. With that, I'm going to go to Garland's source will do anything they can to stop the best president America has ever known. Yeah, well, I really think that you've got a great point there, Ray, because I tie this to the Donald Trump stood up and said America first. He stood up and said we're not going to have a Trans-Pacific Partnership. He stood up and said we're going to negotiate deals that are in the United States' interest. We're not going to continue shipping jobs overseas. And people on the right and the left were outraged by that. And as a result, there is a bipartisan coalition who hate Trump. They're known as never Trumpers on the right, and they're known as the globalist elite on the left. Bottom line is, it brings those two together. So when you see somebody who claims to be a Republican, Liz Cheney, who sits there and who says, gee whiz, I can't stand Donald Trump and we have to do anything we can to stop Donald Trump, it isn't because of anything Donald Trump did in terms of doing something wrong. It's because he stood up to the transfer of jobs overseas and the destruction of American sovereignty. He wanted to close the border and make it so only legal immigrants can come across. Those things are not excusable for the globalist left or right. And that's why those of us who fit neither of those descriptions have to come together and fight. And with that, I'm going to sign off. I didn't really want to do this for a long time, but you had to know what was going on, and darn it. We're going to have something up on our website on Monday that will give you a means to fight this. But until then, I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for hanging in. If I don't talk to you until then, have a great Thanksgiving, and we got some work to do. Thank you.